Thor has been very edgy the last 2 days. Like I said before this fight, I was like, I think Thor's too soft, man. I think he's just not got that zim. Now, he does seem to have a little bit of a temper tantrum, and I know there's been bits about him in the press that have come out about him having a bit of a temper, but I think we've seen it, and I think he's lost his rag, and I think Eddie's got into his head.
All right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, the Kuwait Pro just wrapped up. And no surprise here, but I wanted to give a big congratulations to Kalecinski, who won the classic physique portion of that show. And again, like I said, no surprise, there wasn't a whole lot of big names in this lineup. And he just went from winning the Boston Pro, a top 3 finish at the Arnold Classic. He's one of the best classic physique guys in the world right now, so it's not much of a shock that he would go on to win this show. But definitely a nice little statement for him, adding an extra win to his resume. Again, he's already qualified for the Olympia this year. That Boston Pro win was more than enough for that. So this Kuwait competition was just a little bit of an extra boost for his momentum going into the Olympia this year, and I think he's going to make a big statement there as well. So congratulations again to Kalecinski on the Kuwait Pro victory. Now, next up, some more bodybuilding news here. Hassan Mustafa, who in my opinion really is one of the pound-for-pound freakiest bodybuilders in the IFBB. He's a mass monster. I mean, the guy has an insane amount of muscle everywhere on his body. He didn't have the best season last year, but he's announced what his show will be where he makes his debut in 2022, and that's going to be the Orlando Pro, which is 15 weeks away. I believe it's the first weekend of July 2nd. And look, the issue with Hassan has been kind of the same issue that we've seen with a lot of the mass monsters of this era, and that has been conditioning. I mean, just flipping through these photos, where is he lacking besides conditioning? His body is so extremely muscular. There's no guy that he cannot hang with from a muscularity standpoint in the IFBB. I think he can hang with even Big Ramy. I mean, look at the size of this guy's legs. If Hassan can just really put it together at this Orlando Pro and this season in general from a conditioning standpoint, I think he can be very dangerous. It's just going to be a question of, is he going to be one of these guys that's always going to be a guy where we say, what if? He's just like this off-season freak, got a crazy amount of size but never puts it together, or is he going to be a guy that really puts it together someday and comes in and has a dominant season just crushing guys? I think the other issue too, though, is his midsection. It's not the most aesthetic. It's kind of a blocky build. And sometimes I think he does have some issues controlling it on stage, especially, again, when that conditioning isn't completely nailed. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. 15 weeks out, Orlando Pro, July 2nd for Hassan Mustafa. He's just always a guy, every time he posts a physique update, he's extremely impressive, and I just really would like to see him pull it together from a conditioning standpoint. You guys can let me know what you think in the comment section below. But this is one of the most muscular physiques in the IFBB. I would go as far to say that. I mean, he's got so much muscle everywhere. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, next up in the news, a Phil Heath physique update of sorts where you can see Phil's midsection a little bit. And I want to talk about this just for a second here because I also saw that Phil did a YouTube live video where he was answering a lot of questions. Obviously, Phil was just at the Boston Pro where he made his first public appearance, I think, in a while. I can't remember the last time that I heard or saw Phil attending a show. But he was like a special celebrity guest at this Boston Pro, so we got to hear some of his feedback on that show, some of his feedback on the Arnold Classic lineup in the live stream that he did, but also some feedback on the possibility of him competing this year, which it seems unlikely. I believe his words in that live stream were, it's uncertain or unknown whether or not he's going to compete. It sounds like he has no idea, but it doesn't sound like the Olympia is really on the menu. Another thing that he discussed in that live stream was his commentary abilities, and I was actually impressed as well by the commentary that he did for the Boston Pro live stream, and a lot of people would like to see him do the commentary for the Olympia. Add my name to that list. I would love to see him do the commentary for the Olympia. I think Phil had some really good insights. Being one of the best Mr. Olympias of all time himself, I think he had a lot of valid points and a lot of valid criticism and really constructive criticism that he could offer these competitors and not just tearing them down like we've seen some commentators do in the past. But to go ahead and tie this all in with the Phil Heath physique update, during that live stream, Phil was also talking about some peptides that he's taking now as far as working on reducing the size of his midsection. As you guys know, one of the main reasons, or at least one of the main reasons they told us for the midsection issues was the hernia issue that Phil had, which obviously he had surgically fixed. He had the mesh, he had all that done. He still had a little bit of an issue the last time we saw him on stage, but now he's taking these peptides, which he says has helped tremendously to reduce the midsection issue, which is good to hear. And it certainly looks, I mean, he's almost hitting a vacuum pose in this physique update here, which is cool. But he's definitely sucking in. I see you, Phil. But yeah, whether it's Phil actually competing or Phil just simply doing commentary, I would like to see Phil more involved, you know, publicly in pro bodybuilding things, and get to see him more outwardly facing his personality and his persona. Because whether you loved him or hated him when he was on top, when he was competing, I mean, he was a very polarizing figure. It was fun to watch him, whether you liked him or didn't, because that's what made it so exciting. He had that character, that personality that made people want to tune in, whether it was positive or negative, which is an exciting element to bring to a bodybuilding show where otherwise, without the personality, without the drama, without the back and forth, you're really just looking at a bunch of physiques. There can be, I mean, it's a very two-dimensional sport if there's not an outside element of some personalities in this thing. So that's what Phil brought to the stage. And I'd like to see him back doing something. Now, next up in bodybuilding news, we also got a recent posing video / physique update from Blessing Awodibu, who's preparing for the Indy Pro, the same show where he made his pro debut last year. Right now, what is he, 9 weeks out from that show? Now, I think the New York Pro is also like within a week of the Indy Pro. I think it's the week after. So there's probably a chance that he does both of those shows just like he did last time around. That's what he did last year. So I'm excited to see Blessing take the stage again, man. I hope that he has made the improvements that he needed to make. On this particular post, he says he's gone from 300 pounds to 283 pounds this prep. So he's no small bodybuilder. I believe he's 5'11". He's working with George Farah for this prep, which is a different coach than he worked with last time. And like I said before, really, I think the two biggest things that he needs to bring up are his legs and sharper conditioning. His physique really reminds me kind of like Samson Dowda, kind of like a Sean Roden from the standpoint of he's got a really small waist and a really wide upper body. But Sean Roden and Samson, they both had better legs than Blessing had the last time we saw him on stage. But Samson has had some really good placings lately, and that's the type of physique that I feel like Blessing could have. Those are the type of placings that I think Blessing could be. He could be a first call-out guy in some of these bigger shows if he does bring up the legs. And you can look at Samson as a perfect example of that. I think Samson might even be the same height as Blessing. And I saw a recent interview with Milos where Milos said that Samson weighed like 280 pounds on stage at the Boston Pro. So a similar weight range to what Blessing is weighing at a similar height. And I think a lot of people got discouraged after seeing Blessing's pro debut, his first couple of shows. But I think we need to keep in mind that not every bodybuilder is going to come out of the gate like Nick Walker and just dominate every show that he goes to. It takes time for some bodybuilders, and Blessing might be one of those guys where it takes some time for him to finally put the final package together. But when he does, I do think that Blessing is going to be a threat in the IFBB. It's just going to be a matter of bringing up those legs and sharper conditioning. And the final story that I have for you guys today, a non-bodybuilding story. One more Eddie versus Thor story for you guys. So Martyn Ford showed up in Dubai for this fight. Obviously, a lot of you guys know who Martyn Ford is. He's actually preparing for his own fight against the Persian Hawk, and that's going to be in like a month or so. So he showed up here. He's Team Eddie. He gives his predictions. So I'm going to roll a couple of clips of Martyn Ford in Dubai, basically what he had to say about the fight. And that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys, after that clip. So make sure you give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification icon. All that good stuff helps out a lot. Liking the video helps out, so make sure you do all that. And without further ado, here's the clip. Nick Strength and Power signing out.
This is Martyn Ford here on behalf of Core Sports, and I will be watching the Eddie and Thor fight. My predictions: it has to go to my boy Eddie, out of friendship, loyalty, and all of that jazz. But I do think it's going to be a phenomenal fight. I think it's going to be spicy. I think it's going to be interesting. I think both of the guys are going to feel it. And hopefully, for you at home, it's horrible. Oh, yes. Take care, good luck, enjoy, and stay tuned. You know what? It's all handbags. It's part of the build-up, it's the energy, there's general hate between them. I don't think he said something about his mum. I just said I think it was just like a be quiet. So it was more like advice. I mean, probably not the best advice to be given to someone who hates you. Yeah, he knew it was going to spice it up, and he knew it was going to probably cause a reaction, which it did. Thor has been very edgy the last 2 days. Like I said before this fight, I was like, I think Thor's too soft, man. I think he's just not got that zim. Now, he does seem to have a little bit of a temper tantrum, and I know there's been bits about him in the press that have come out about him having a bit of a temper, but I think we've seen it, and I think he's lost his rag, and I think Eddie's got into his head, and ultimately it's part of the fight game, which, love it or hate it, is part of it, part of getting into someone's head, causing that anger, that frustration. Before this fight, I was concerned Eddie was too emotional.